Yo, yo. Rapquake the Himalayan, dropping flows, laying down the plans for the globe. The millennial plans, Agenda 2030. Used to be Agenda 21 for 2021. That's the time they planned for you to be done with your freedom. Because we gotta abandon the notion of national sovereignty. Can't you see? That's the title of chapter V. The abandonment of sovereignty, the need for limit. That's how they did it. Keep you locked in to your chamber, your room, or your apartment complex. Only 1 hour allowed outside. Wait, just a short walk, 1 mile. Yeah, shit's getting wild. Let's go back to the old beat, cause the volume is too high, G. Yeah. Some of that old haunted mansion beat. Keep you glued to your seat. But the conditions for failure are coming with the world order. It's all fraught with danger, the night market form. No matter the center, it will replace living acts with dead artifacts. Watch your porno while you jack it. Will treat nature as merchandise and man himself into a mass-produced commodity. A slave man, machine, animal hybrid. It will create a chasm between the rich nomads and the poor nomads. The dream of endless choice may end up in a nightmare of no choice at all. A world of abundance may founder in an age of scarcity. The earth, after all, is not blessed with an inexhaustible stock of resources. So the next millennium will be terrible or magnificent, depending on our ability to limit our dreams. Not everything is possible or should be. We must have the wisdom to curtail our dreams. And by dreams, I would say, your wants instead of your needs. There are limits, and not just that, but also your desires that are not good for others, such as making man a commodity. Now, the first question girls ask is, what do you do? How much do you make? Not everything is possible or should be. Wait, let me go back to the beat. While you sit in your seat, have a lyrical treat. Cause I don't need to compete with some violent rhymers. Crazy cannibal MCs on the streets. Some DOPE and some just vicious. Cause my raps are nutritious, fertilized with the shit that I gain insights from books like these. But you gotta read between the lines, can't you see? If you don't read between, then they're gonna put you in that New World Order dream. To limit your dreams. That's what it seems. There are limits, ethical and biological, that we must not transgress unless we want peril. So to create a civilization that endures, humanity must endure. To create a civilization that endures, humanity must somehow reconcile itself with nature and with itself. Back to the jungle. Back to monkeyhood. According to science. That's what I say. He says we must embrace a pluralistic and tolerant political culture that is imbued with a profound sense of the sacred. Let's worship these scientists better, y'all. Can't you see they're taking care of us and protecting us from disease and death? With their masked faces like those. Our survival as a species demands no less. The most pressing problem of the future will be the struggle to learn how to manage problems that are, for the first time, global in nature. 2020 COVID-19. Right? It was supposed to be 2019 that they were going to have their global warming pandemic, but I guess climate change wasn't moving people enough. So death and destruction and collapse and imprisonment is the next solution. The most pressing problem will be the struggle to learn how to manage problems that are global in nature. Globality characterizes the problems that confront us. Wealth and poverty, immigration and development, drugs and disarmament, and environment are all inextricably linked. By the Brotherhood. Huh. Anyway, we will need to muster a new political vision and found new institutions that can compensate for the inherent limitations of the nation state and the constraining logic of the market. So we will need, this is what the banksters need. A vision of global stewardship will require, above all, political leaders who recognize the need for limits. I mean, Donald Trump hasn't stopped the limit on our free speech, and now he's just blaming China. But anyway, and have the courage to abandon traditional notions of national sovereignty. Okay? Political leaders who abandon the traditional notions of national sovereignty. Well, let's see what happens in the next few years. Such a course will doubtless face enormous obstacles, but such obstacles can hardly be greater than those surmounted by the newly emergent nation-states at the end of the 18th century. So similar times of crisis. The transition from the age of monarchy to the age of rule by law, which I believe was the second wave that Albert Toffler talked about. The first wave being the agrarian revolution, which was the monarchy. The second was the order of the force, I guess, where it was more about the industrial age and governments, mind control for the slaves. Governmental. But I'm mental. Don't believe the hype. The transition from the age of monarchy to the age of rule by law and the separation of powers was to the men of that time as momentous and precarious a passage as the new millennium we are now entering. So interesting little comparison. If you know history, you're not doomed to repeat it in the sense that you won't believe all the lies this time around. Alright, never before have people held as much power to shape their future as they do today. I guess he's talking about the select few, the really privileged ones, not not people that they say like us, we are privileged because we have gotten a college education or so forth. we're born with penises, so we're privileged. PP time. Never before have people held as much power to shape their future as they do today. And never before have there been so many urgent decisions to be taken by a single generation in order for the world to realize its tremendous potential for prosperity while remaining livable. Right? Generation X he's talking about, I guess. I don't know. But that's one thing too the psychopaths do. That's a psychopathic tactic to put pressure on you and make it seem like you have to make a decision right now, or else the window of opportunity will pass. So it could be that what he's doing, or he's just saying that the time is so critical because of all these changes that this generation really has tremendous potential to maintain prosperity and remain livable. Currently we're not doing either of those things very well at all. We're doing the opposite at a very fast speed. Since 2019 it's been obvious to me. But it would be foolhardy and even offensive if I were to assure my readers that these decisions will be made. Today, as in the past, many things are beyond prediction. Unexpected events, unlikely men and women, improbable ideas, all burst forth when one least expects them. Individuals, whether Muhammad or Luther. Yeah, that's true, right? They make you think that you're worthless, but even an idea that you can think can change the world, you know? An original idea. If you own your own mind, that is. So a mastermind like Jack Atali clearly knows that nothing is for certain, even with total physical control of the world and bulletproof plans and backup plans and so forth. Many things are beyond prediction, unexpected events, unlikely men and women, improbable ideas. So individuals, whether Muhammad or Luther in the past or Gorbachev today, have the extraordinary ability to bend history in a direction and with a speed no astrologer, however prescient, or professor, however erudite, can possibly anticipate. All that can be reasonably said is that the world will change more in the next 10 years than in any other period of history. And that's true. 9/11 happened in 2001, and many laws were put into place in this decade, which we're currently reaping the bitter fruits of. The sour and bitter fruits of. The sour, astringent, and bitter fruits of. Nevertheless, as I have tried to suggest throughout these reflections, the dawn of the next millennium, in its force fields as well as in its diverse hazards, can be discerned in a general sense. The dawn of the next millennium can be discerned. And the next decade can be discerned if you read Agenda 2030. You're already seeing the poverty, the lack of transportation, the lack of access to necessary resources, and so forth. And the change in the people, culture, everything Sovietized. And the women, especially. Soon there'll be American brides up for sale all over the civilized third world, the progressive and civilized third world. But he talks about that too, that American will be the new boat people of the new millennium, and I believe it's in this chapter, if I didn't already read it earlier. I think either in chapter 1 or 2 or in this chapter. So this much is clear. The order of money will become universal by Y2K. And it definitely became by 2012, because that's when the end of the world was supposedly declared to the whole world. So yeah, 2012, the cashless society, and so forth. Computerization of everything, and the virtual force field around us. 5G now. 5 guns aimed at us. All elements corrupted. And we are barely surviving. Existing, surviving, whatever. This much is clear. Between now and the year 2K, Order of the Money will become universal. Whole globe. Shackled. Right? Bound by bars. Of length and width. For peace. The two-faced peace. Alright. Any other songs I have? Let me see. Alright. The next rap is doing on my old beat. Got my lyrics in the back seat. But it don't matter, G. Cause they be competing for minds, methods, and markets. And we just starving, trying to breathe above this pollution pocket. We trapped them, G. Yeah, that's what I see. This much is clear. The order of money is universal. More money, more problems. From Santiago to Beijing. From Johannesburg to Moscow. All economic systems bow down to the big pound and the yen, the yuan, numero one. It's got the pyramid in the back with all-seeing eye to keep you trapped, sacrificing for the gods of profit. Two economic spheres competing, unstable but homogeneous, struggling for supremacy. One organized around the Pacific, the other Europe. Alright, so now the next paragraph. Military prowess will give way to economic might. Democracy will generally hold sway. But this evolution is not certain. In the Pacific sphere, America will react to the Japanese power, and when its dependence becomes painfully evident, they'll start biting the hand that feeds them, which is China. That might be what he's saying, or it might be something else going on. Can't trust the fake news, right? The US is then likely to turn in upon itself, creating massive programs to catch up, establishing an industrial policy by increasing the government's intervention in the economy, particularly in financial services. So, Pacific sphere, America reacts to Japanese. The dependence is painfully evident, and US will turn in upon itself, creating massive programs to catch up, establishing an industrial policy by increasing the government's intervention in the economy, particularly in financial services. So maybe that's what Trump's been doing. I don't know. I don't really follow the economy, but that's the most important thing you follow: economy, energy, and environment. Because Jacques Attali was born in Africa in 1943. He's a novelist, essayist, and writer. He's a big mind out there, and was a special advisor to President Francois Mitterrand since 1981. And a former professor of economics at the École Polytechnique, another E, some big dogs, EP. In Paris, Attali is currently president of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development in London. Doubtless it will turn towards Latin America and Europe to find support and market outlets. So America will turn towards the Latin America and Europe and China afterwards, initially at least. If events confirm the end of the Cold War, America will have been relieved of its military burden of defending the continent from Soviet expansionism. So we have another Cold War. Alright. So the military burden was supposedly relieved in 1990 of defending the continent from Soviet expansionism. But then the military-industrial complex took over after 9/11. So this did not make it possible for Americans to gradually find a sort of economic, political, and financial equilibrium. They've been sinking in all three spheres. The success of this belated effort is not at all certain. I guess it was a secret society of the Chinese bush poppy smuggling motherfuckers. I don't know. But the success of this belated effort is not at all certain unless Americans are willing to accept a lasting shift from consumption to savings, something that would be politically unpalatable for those with the courage to urge such policies of reform and reconstruction. Ain't that the truth? Because it's just I was mind blown by the fact that 60% of the wealth that American people save is lost after divorce by the greedy Jezebels who cannibalized their ex-husbands who took care of them supposedly for years. You know? So it is very politically unpalatable because the government is just a big white knight mangina for the feminist imperative, and they keep wanting more and more, and the globalists are happy to deliver it to them. In the European sphere, a harmonious integration of the continent is not at all sure. There are many obstacles to be overcome. Alright, so I already said a lot, and I'm pretty hungry. Let's come back to this in the next video. It's already 24.